Let us begin with the story of a young man, one whose name is not mentioned in the first line of history books, but whose circumstances and sincerity made his voice echo throughout generations of Muslims. He lived during the blessed time of the Prophet Muhammad, the noblest of all creation, the seal of the prophets, and the one whom Allah chose as a mercy to the worlds. This young man was no stranger to hardship. His life was marked by immense trials. After the tragic loss of his father in the battlefield of Uhud, one of the earliest and most painful battles of Islam, he was left behind not just to process the grief, but to shoulder the enormous responsibility of caring for 7 sisters. Imagine that. A young man barely past his youth, suddenly finding himself responsible for an entire household, bearing the burden of significant debt and navigating life in the aftermath of a war-torn Medina. This is the same man who would go on to narrate to us one of the most pivotal du'as in our deen, a du'a that has since been passed down through centuries, recited by millions of hearts seeking clarity. It is none other than the du'a of Istikhara. He tells us something incredibly beautiful. He says, which means the Prophet Muhammad used to teach us to make Istikhara in all of our affairs, just as he would teach us a surah from the Qur'an. Pause and reflect on that. Just as the companions were taught the Qur'an word by word, letter by letter, with reverence, precision, and regularity, so too were they taught to make Istikhara with the same level of seriousness and care. This isn't a casual du'a reserved for rare occasions. It wasn't limited to once-a-year monumental decisions like marriage or job changes. It was something the Prophet Muhammad made a habitual part of life. That comparison alone between Istikhara and the Quran tells us something deep, that Istikhara is not optional for the serious believer, it is essential. It is a spiritual necessity. Just as the Quran is the constant guide for our hearts, Istikhara is the recurring compass for our decisions. What this also implies, and the scholars point this out clearly, is that the actual words of this du'a should not be tampered with. Just as you don't alter the words of the Quran, you don't modify the wording of Istikhara. You don't add a few extra requests of your own, nor do you take away parts because you feel they may not apply. The barakah, the divine blessing, lies in the exact formula that Prophet Muhammad used. The wording carries a divine weight, and its construction is a miracle in itself. Now, what's also deeply profound is the implication this has for our mindset. Just as we do not hasten through Quranic recitation without reflection, we are not supposed to rush into decisions, whether minor or major, without first seeking the guidance of Allah. The believer is not someone who jumps into life's moments haphazardly. The believer doesn't just go with the flow or rely on instinct or emotion alone. No, the believer is deliberate, thoughtful, grounded, and most importantly, always connected to Allah before taking any step forward. This is why Istikhara is not just for the big things in life. Yes, many associate it with marriage. Others do it before applying for a job or relocating. But the companions of the Prophet Muhammad were taught to turn to Istikhara in all matters, every step, every fork in the road, every opportunity, every hesitation. Because the essence of Istikhara is not in seeking clarity alone, it is in demonstrating complete dependence upon Allah. It's about surrender. It's about saying, "Oh Allah, I have no knowledge, no power, and no control, except what you grant me." One of the scholars described it beautifully. The relationship between Istikhara and our life decisions is like the relationship between Qur'an and Salat. In other words, praying without Qur'an is incomplete, and living without Istikhara is living without guidance. So, what is Istikhara, and what is it not? Let's start with what Istikhara is not, because there are so many misunderstandings about it. Istikhara is not some mystical key that suddenly unlocks hidden doors. It's not a magic switch that turns on divine clarity in your head. Nor is it a secret signal from the heavens that comes to you in a vivid dream. This is where many people get confused and often disappointed. Some will say, "I prayed Istikhara and I didn't see anything." Others will say, "I saw her in my dream, so it must be a sign." But let's be honest. If you've been thinking about marrying someone all day, of course your subconscious might bring them into your dreams. That's not divine communication, that's human psychology. Istikhara is not about dreams. It's not about seeing colors or receiving magical signs. It's not a yes or no answer that appears under your pillow like a fortune cookie. In fact, some cultures even suggest placing slips of paper with yes and no under your pillow after praying Istikhara and picking one in the morning. This isn't from Islam. It's a reflection of our human desire for certainty and control, to know, to be told, to have quick answers. But that's not how Istikhara works. Istikhara is a dua. It's a supplication. It's a humble turning to Allah and asking Him, "Oh Allah, guide me to what is best." What you are doing in that moment is saying, "Ya Allah, I've done my part. I've thought about it. I've consulted others. I've assessed the pros and cons. But now I leave the matter to you. Guide me. Open the doors if it's good, close them if it's not." And that's the true beauty of Istikhara. It aligns your heart with tawakkul, trusting Allah fully. Now let's talk about the 3 essential components before you even pray Istikhara, personal reflection. You must first do your own research. Analyze the decision. Think through the outcomes. Try to assess whether this thing is beneficial to your faith, your life, and your long-term well-being. Consultation. This is vital. You ask people of knowledge, wisdom, and righteousness for their advice. Not just your friends who will say what you want to hear, but real, sincere advisors who can see what you might be missing. Even the Prophet Muhammad was commanded in the Qur'an. Consult with them in matters. Then once you have made a decision, place your trust in Allah. Supplication, Istikhara. Only after these 2 steps do you raise your hands and make the dua of Istikhara sincerely, humbly, and repeatedly if needed. And how do you pray it? The Prophet Muhammad taught that you begin by praying 2 rakas of voluntary prayer, not obligatory. They can be any voluntary rakas, perhaps the sunnah before Fajr or 2 rakas after entering the masjid. What matters is that you make the intention for Istikhara in your heart. Once the prayer is complete, then you recite the dua of Istikhara, exactly as the Prophet taught it. And if you make this a regular habit, a spiritual practice, not just an emergency ritual, it will transform your life. Some companions made it daily. Imagine praying 2 rakas each day with the intention of Istikhara, and then seeking Allah's guidance in both the small and large decisions of life. How much more clarity, peace, and barakah would our lives hold? Let us now explore the actual wording of this magnificent dua, piece by piece, and the deep spiritual truths embedded in it. Oh Allah, I seek your guidance through your knowledge. The dua begins by acknowledging that Allah knows and we do not. Even if we have done all the research in the world, our knowledge is limited. We do not know the future. We do not see the unseen. But Allah does. And I seek ability from you through your power, and I ask you from your immense bounty. Here, we recognize that even if we know what's best, we don't have the power to make it happen without Allah's help. Nothing moves, nothing happens without the will of Allah. We are weak, we are dependent, we are always in need of His support. For you are capable and I am not, you know, and I do not. You are the knower of the unseen. This repetition is not just poetic, it is essential. It is a surrendering of the self, a reminder that only Allah knows what lies behind each door. We only see what's in front of us. But He sees what's hidden behind the scenes. Then comes the heart of the dua. Oh Allah, if you know that this matter, you name it here, is good for me in my religion, in my livelihood, and in the outcome of my affair, then decree it for me, make it easy for me, and bless it for me, Subhanallah. Look at how you're asking for 3 things. Takdir, let it happen if it's good. Taysir, let the path to it be smooth and not filled with hardship. Barakah, let the end result be filled with divine goodness. But then comes the harder part, the true test of sincerity. And if you know that this matter is bad for me in my religion, my livelihood, and my final outcome, then turn it away from me and turn me away from it. This is deep. You're not just asking Allah to remove the matter from your path. You're asking Him to remove you from being attached to it. Because sometimes our heart clings to what is harmful, and we don't realize it. You are asking Allah to protect your heart from grieving over what was never meant for you. And finally, and decree for me what is good, wherever it may be, and make me content with it, even if it's something you didn't expect. even if it's not what you wanted. You ask Allah to give you what's best, and then you ask Him for rida, contentment. Because what's the point of receiving something good if your heart still aches for what was not meant for you? And in this final request lies a deep secret. Peace is not just in receiving what's best, but in being content with what Allah has chosen for you. Conclusion. Dear brothers and sisters, the dua of Istikhara is not just a ritual for rare decisions, it is a lifestyle. It is a declaration of trust in Allah. It is the embodiment of surrender, of wisdom, of connection with our Lord in the moments that define our lives. So let us make Istikhara not something occasional, but something foundational. Let it be the way we walk, the way we choose, the way we live. Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to stay updated with more inspiring Islamic content. Like, share, and comment to support our work and spread the message.